So, hey
All right.
Drago. I'm sorry,
Hey.
Draco, right? Not Draco.
Oh, Draco's fine. I don't care.
Alright, thanks for coming on with me just to nerd out about Godzilla. So, you're a longtime Godzilla fan, and I'm not. So,
Yeah.
let's start with you. Just overall, how good is this as a Godzilla film? In your opinion?
Overall, as a Godzilla film, I'd say it's 9 out of 10.
As a film
it's
overall, though, I say
As
8.
a film overall, yeah, it's maybe an 8.
7, depending on the person, if they're just not into this kind of Japanese overacting. But I actually took notes for this. I took notes, and I want to go this in order. I just want to start off by saying I really like this movie. I highly recommend it, and so does my friend Draco. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Who knows his Godzilla movies?
It is probably the second or third best Godzilla movie that Toho has ever made. So I would highly suggest anyone even remotely interested in Godzilla give it a shot.
So as far as I can tell, I haven't watched any of the Toho Godzilla movies. Is this essentially almost a one-to-one recreation of the original, or just a reboot from the original's point of view?
It's a complete reboot. The original actually takes place in around 1953 or 54, and as you can remember from the movie, most likely, that this one started in 45 and ran to like either 47 or 48.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
also,
go ahead.
Their method of dealing with Godzilla is a lot more grounded than it was in even 54.
Let's not spoil that, at least.
Oh, I'm not going to spoil it.
Gotcha. Because it was actually really, really good idea.
It was. It's a novel idea, if nothing else.
It made perfect sense. So, let's just start off with the biggest compliments that we can give this movie. Let's just start with the actors, because a few of them did blow me away. Namely, let's see, I have their names written down here. Minami Hamabe. Minami Hamabe. She played the wife, Noriko.
Yeah.
And the reason she impressed me was her range. She's like 23. I looked her up. And I completely bought her being a snot-nosed teenager at the beginning, just a complete nuisance, until she annoyed her way into the guy's life. I completely bought it.
Yeah, she did come off as a annoying kind of street kid very early on, and you also believe her as the kind of wannabe wife towards the middle of the movie.
She was a lady at the end, absolutely.
Yep.
And I looked her up. I don't recognize anything else she's been in. Actually, am I screen sharing? I should screen share with you. That's what I should do.
Yeah, that might help.
Go live.
Yeah, I haven't really.
I'll
be
never
honest,
seen her anything. But I don't watch Japanese movies.
Nor do I, not usually. I occasionally do, but it is a rare thing other than a Godzilla movie or some other kaiju flick.
I know of Shin Kami Rock. I know of Kamen Rider, just because nerd culture never stops talking about this.
Pretty much.
I recognize this. I've heard of Detective Conan.
Yeah.
I've heard of The Promised Neverland. I have no interest in it. I have watched an episode of Aizouken. I should finish that. I really liked the premise. That was cute. So that's the one thing she's been in I've heard of or seen before. I need to figure out which character she is. And Hello World sounds interesting, just because it sounds like a programmer's falling in love story. And let's see. Let Me Eat Your Princess. Ew. April Fool's. Ace Attorney. I've heard of Ace Attorney. Never played the games. I think that's a video game, right?
Yeah, it's a video game series.
Oh my goodness. She's been acting since she was 11.
I can't remember what what company puts it out, because I've never played it either. I've had friends that were into it, but I mean, if I'm playing essentially a visual, let's
not get on a tangent.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
This girl has been acting since she was 11 in 2012.
Wow, that's actually pretty impressive. She's actually got good range for a former child actor.
And she seems all right. Yeah, no, I really liked her, and the other guy I liked. Wait, what? There. Oh, I lost the page. Let's see. What was his name? The captain, Yoji Akitsu. He was acted by Kuranosuke Sasaki. This guy he's such an over actor, but it works. He's kind of like Jim Carrey minus the cringe in how expressive his face is and vocals are. You know?
Yeah, he did a really good job. The only person I didn't terribly like was actually just the male lead.
I didn't hate him. He was just there.
I didn't hate him. It's just, he just was there. And I guess the muted response kind of makes sense for someone dealing with the kind of trauma he had, but at the same time,
he was trying to portray a character with PTSD, but I don't think he did a great job of that.
It's less entertaining to watch.
He got the job done, though.
He definitely got the job done.
I think it is. Actually, if we were to look at his IMDb, I'm sure we'll find that he's played very different roles in the past. But let's talk about Kuranosuke first.
Yeah.
He kind of he's a little cartoonish, to be honest. And if I were to say of all the careers I think he should be in, I think he should be an animator, not even a voice actor in animation, just an animator, because he reminds me of, I can't remember the animator's name, but he had a really expressive face, just like him. He almost like Ernie, if you've ever watched an Ernie movie. He has one of those faces that seems like they can stretch to impossible proportions, one of those guys. And he used a mirror to draw Looney Tunes character. He looked like a real-life Looney Tunes character, the way he expressed himself, his facial expressions. And so this is also true for Kuranosuke.
Interesting.
Like, if he picked up some arts, he'd make a good little, like, actual over-the-top cartoon animator. But, he should also teach, like, Japanese language, because the way he over-enunciates things and mouths words, like, if you didn't know how to position your tongue when talking, you'd know after just watching him talk for a little while. I like him a lot. I want to see more of what he's in. I'm positive he was just forced into theater school by his parents at the old age of 3, the way he acts.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Any other actors you want to point out besides, you said the male lead, so Ryunosuke?
Not specifically the actors. I'd say that the entire cast of the crew of the boat...
Holy crap, hang on a second.
Generally.
He's been in Spirited Away, The Secret World of Arrietty, and an anime movie called Your Name, which I haven't seen. But both of those are good. Bo.
I've heard Your Name is good, but I haven't seen it either. But apparently, he does work for, he did work for, Ghibli, which is
He looks impressive. Way too young to have been able to do that. That was 2001. Did I click on the wrong actor? Bo was the baby. Okay. He voice acted a baby as a baby. Okay.
Fair enough.
That. How old is he? How old is this guy? If his first voice acting role was as a baby in an animation, that would be hilarious. That would just be so cool. He's the same age as me, 1993, so he would have been 11? No, 8 when he did that.
Yeah, because Bo does have lines.
Oh, he actually talks? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to rewatch Spirited Away because it's coming back to theaters in a few months. So I'm waiting on rewatching it until then. 2001, that's 7 or 8 years old, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bo did have actual lines, a few of them. He wasn't a heavy talker, but he did have actual lines, both to his mother and to the main girl.
Hey, I already forgot all the characters, so let me continue forgetting
I don't remember any
until
names.
Watching it. Until I watch it again, just so it can be fresh, because I'm seeing it in theaters for the first time.
I saw it in theaters like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, jeez, you could rub it in. I did see the Secret World of Arrietty in theaters. Was it Secret World of Arrietty, or was it, The Witch Who Stole the Flowers?
I know the one you're talking about. I've never seen that.
I might have seen Arrietty, too.
Secret World of Arrietty is the one that's based off The Borrowers.
Oh, I know. It was a good movie. But that's all I got for the actors. You got any other ones you want to point out?
Not really. I'd say that the entire crew of the entire 3-man crew of the ship was entertaining, but I
love how you forgot one, and I know exactly which one you forgot. The kid with the broken arm.
No, that would be the 3-man crew. I'm not counting the lead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was a 4-man crew.
It is a 4-man crew, but I'm more talking about the people other than the lead, which I guess was unclear.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the kid with the broken arm, the scientist, and the captain.
They had a good dynamic when they were just 3 guys who were really working below their station, doing hard work because the country needed it. Like, all these guys were... If they had said, you know what, I'm above doing this work, they'd be right, but they did the work anyways. So I like that.
Well, one of the major themes going on throughout the movie is about how the World War II Imperial Japanese really didn't value life.
Oh, yeah.
And we're not just talking...
In the aftermath of the war,
in the aftermath
they just lived in a world of gray bleh for a while, just not even alive.
Yep.
And how tragic that was, that they were just they were all shell-shocked. You would be too after getting the fat man dropped on you.
Yeah, well, that's not just it. If you remember, they had less issues with the Americans than they had with their own government towards the end.
Oh,
because they legitimately bring up that it wasn't just a lack of value of the life of their enemies. Oh no, it was a lack of any sort of value of the life of their own people.
That and the complete lack of openness and transparency within the ranks.
That too
was one that they kept hammering throughout the movie.
Yeah, because they hammered things like about how messed up the kamikazes and the suicide attacks were, the lightly armored, the basically uselessly armored tanks and other things. Which we
saw some of them later on. I'm like, wow, those look like they're made of paper mache. We actually saw the
pretty
tanks
much.
They actually they actually sent these pathetic tanks up against Godzilla after Godzilla had tanked so many. Tanked.
Honestly, at that point, it's all they had, though.
It was.
So, I mean, you make do. But, yeah. I like getting to see an unmutated Godzilla towards the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
that was a nice
we saw
change.
Godzilla as he originally was. It's a little vague on his nature, and I like that it's not saying if he's an actual creature or some kind of guardian spirit for this island, or both. And it works. I like the idea of him being a guardian spirit.
Yeah,
more than a living organism.
There's also some effects that I did like. Like, if you notice at the very beginning...
I have a section written down in the notes for effects. We can do that later.
Okay.
Let's finish with the actors.
Sadly, I don't really have terribly much to say about the actors specifically, simply because, much like you, I don't watch a lot of Japanese films.
I should, because they seem to... everyone on crew seemed to be having a blast. So if these actors are the personalities in a lot of Japanese movies, I should watch more. But since you want to jump right into the star of the show, let's talk about the star of the show, Godzilla.
Yeah. So, I have some feelings about it. So if you notice, at the very beginning of the movie on the island, Godzilla is very fluid in his motions.
Oh yeah, because he's smaller, he's lither.
Well, it's not just that. It's not just that that would be more like faster and agile. No, I'm talking about there's actual fluidity to his movements. He's not... Well, we'll get into how he moves later.
Well, no, we can start with
that.
As
contrast.
You made me laugh my ass off when you said, I really liked how... we were texting you, I really liked how stiff they made Godzilla. I'm like, did you watch some other Godzilla movie? This thing was dexterous as all hell.
Not at the later points when he was on land. At that point, all of his movements are very stiff and mechanical, almost.
Well, that's because his actual body changed from the beginning to the end. In the beginning, he was lithe and muscle. At the end, he actually had almost a sickly, distended stomach, and I liked that.
Yeah. Well, he was, they were leaning a lot more in on the radiation mutation side of things than they traditionally do. This guy's sick and
dying. That's what it looks like. This Godzilla looks sick and dying.
He's not, but yeah, he does look it.
He certainly feels it, I'm sure.
Quite possibly. It doesn't look like he's having a fun time. No. I do like that every time he used his breath,
it hurt him.
That it would, he had to regenerate because you could see the burns on his own skin and have it watching it regenerate.
Which makes you wonder. The only way they could have made. Oh, go ahead.
Which is an entirely new thing for him. The regeneration is a completely new power, and it's Well, it doesn't have the budget. It's a Japanese feature, and it doesn't have the budget, so it comes off a little
well, let's get to the
goofy. But I mean, for as best as you're gonna get,
the only way they could have made that hit home even harder is if, because you saw what it did to the outside of him. I can't imagine what that did to the inside of him. It should have shown him like coughing up his carbonated insides afterwards. Like charcoal from his own flesh afterwards.
They've actually done some really cool things with Godzilla's breath weapon in the last two movies. It'd be a tangent to go into Shin Godzilla, but
I haven't seen that yet. I should now. If it ever comes to theaters, I am there. In fact, if any Godzilla movie comes to theaters, I'm there after this.
Towards the end, I guess I'll probably give you some recommendations, but that would definitely be on the list.
Shin is one that I look at and I say, I've seen like clips of it. I'm like, I should see that. That looks good.
Yeah, well, we're trying to stay on topic, so I think that would be better to discuss. You'll discuss a bit later, because it's a really good movie. It's less serious than this one.
Talking about seriousness, I thought a lot of this movie was just outright hilarious. Like, there were a few points in there that, like, they could not have meant it any other way than to make the audience laugh their asses off. Like, in the beginning, when it was a small, normal Godzilla.
For the most part, they were actually trying to be serious. I've seen enough of these movies to know they were trying to be serious.
But in the beginning, when a guy actually says... Like, even if you do nothing about... Why am I so burpy today? Give me a second. In the beginning, when Godzilla was still just the living creature he initially was before the radiation, when it was just the small, lithe one tearing up the island, even if you knew nothing about Godzilla and you saw this thing, and a guy said to you, shoot it with a 20mm, what will that do? Come on, 20mm will kill anything. How can you do anything other than laugh yourself to tears? Because I did.
I mean, it does seem funny, but if you compare the size of the plane and the guns to Godzilla at that time, the 20mm probably would have wrecked his day.
Well, especially if he didn't have regeneration yet. But I thought the only way I think they could have killed Godzilla is if somebody took a Bugs Bunny versus the Martian jackhammer to the bomb on the bottom of the jet, which was gone in that scene for some reason. Like, in the beginning, like, the bomb was strapped to the bottom of the plane when it landed, and you were worried it was going to hit one of the ditches and explode.
Yeah.
But then in that scene, it was gone.
Well, yeah, it was a kamikaze plane. When they wanted to work on it, because it was there to be worked on by the mechanics.
Yep.
They took the bomb right off because they don't want to accidentally blow themselves up. They're not the suicide ones.
Gotcha.
The pilot's supposed to be suicide.
I think at that point, if they still had that bomb, they might have been able to kill him. But unless we're assuming that the regeneration is from the radiation, and I don't think it is. I think his size is.
I wouldn't know.
Him being a regenerating creature was because he's a spirit. That's just my headcanon.
Yeah. We don't really have anything to go off of. It could be either way.
Which I like, because then we can imagine scenarios like I just came up with and life.
Whereas, if he was regenerative before the radiation, then the 20mm would have been pointless. If he wasn't,
it might have. If you got a good shot on the eyes, they could have definitely permanently damaged him. I'm not so sure about the killing him though, because I'm looking at his size. If his bones are as thick, I don't think they could have pierced his skull with a 20mm. I'm not kidding.
20mm is a.
Oh, I'm a Navy brat. I know. I know.
I mean, they might not have taken out bones, but to be honest, if they take out organs, that's more than enough if you can't regenerate.
The problem was the plane was stationary, and he was waiting for Godzilla to move into his line of sight, and he was about to shoot on the head.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked.
I don't think that would have killed it. Maybe the throat.
That might have worked, but it might not have as well for the exact reason you said. It depends upon the density of his bones.
But if they got him in the throat, I think if he couldn't regenerate at that time, I think he could have killed Godzilla.
If they could have gotten him in the throat or the torso, if he wasn't regenerating, it would have pulped him. The head, that's really going to depend upon the bones.
And with the rib cage, I'm also not so certain, because those People survive because our ribs can deflect bullets unexpectedly in very shocking ways.
True.
So his ribs, depending on what they're like, I don't think 20 millimeter would have killed him. But I still laugh, just even if you didn't know this was Godzilla. Well, okay, knowing it's Godzilla, it's especially hilarious.
If
shoot him with
else,
the 20 millimeter, that should kill him.
Yeah, even if it didn't, it might have driven him off.
No. We're assuming he's an animal with animal instincts, which he defies in every other part of the movie.
The thing is, traditionally he is an animal in the in pretty much every movie before he's mutated. Traditionally, he is an animal of some sort, usually a dinosaur.
Okay. The other
he's
really
never,
funny scene. Oh, go ahead.
He's never started as a spirit in anything, although he has been a vengeful ghost in one movie. But that was a very weird movie, and that was just a really weird movie. And he started that movie as a vengeful ghost, but he didn't start that series as a vengeful ghost, I should say. Right on.
The other really, really hilarious scene was with the train drivers.
Yeah.
Godzilla just throws a tankard onto the train tracks, and it just splits, changes the camera for less than half a second of the two train drivers seeing this, and their reaction was gorgeous. The way they dropped their fudge was just the most hilarious slapstick I've ever seen. I don't know who those two actors are. I'm sure I couldn't find it because they had such a small role. I would like to know. They need to be in more things just for their perfect portrayal of two terrified train drivers.
Yeah, which is then completely just juxtaposed with the very reasonably terrified Noriko in the train.
Which actually brings me to the next topic I want to talk about, the props and the special effects. Because with the train, one of the things that impressed me the most about this movie was the style of destruction, if that makes sense. When Godzilla lifts the train cart, one of the other trains snaps in half, not from force, but just from being lifted from a point it shouldn't have. The weight of itself snapping in places.
Yeah.
Like somebody who worked on this movie was a civil engineer who knows the difference between shearing forces and compressive forces and knows how they apply to structures. Because there was another scene where a part of a building was knocked out from under them. The reporters on top of it. That was also
that was wonderful.
But when the bottom of the building was knocked out from under it, just the weight of the building falling on itself snapped the roof in half. And the way it looked so realistic. Not because of the effects of it, but because of the design of it. Somebody knows their demolition. Somebody worked in demolition, I'm sure.
Probably. Given how much experience they have with stuff like old model work and everything, and just explosives, they probably knew somebody in demolitions to advise.
And or civil engineers.
I don't know, it's Japan, it's not a very big nation, so yeah, they probably were able to get the right advisors without terribly much trouble.
Aside from that, for not necessarily special effects, just the props, the attention to detail and making things look era-specific, or era-appropriate, I should say, was gorgeous, especially that motorcycle. The noise that motorcycle made. Mwah.
That was a nice motorcycle.
Like, you can just feel the hum of that engine whenever it's on scene. Because those motorcycles weren't quiet. You still there, buddy?
I'm still here. And no, they definitely were not quiet. They're of the same family that we only see really continued and stuff with a couple of companies.
Hell, I'm sure if I had that motorcycle today, I wouldn't even be able to legally ride it where I live, because they wouldn't approve it for emissions.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, that's... America, land of the free. Emissions tests, yay. $200 to the government just to plug something into the computer. Oh, you don't have a computer? We can't do emissions tests. You can't register it.
Yep.
But I liked that motorcycle a lot. I wish we'd seen some more era-specific vehicles besides the military ones. We did. sadly. But to be fair, that's pretty expensive. If they got the original of that motorcycle, that's very, very expensive. If it's a replica, it's a good one.
Well, there's also the fact that as far as Japan and cars and stuff are concerned, they're very much more and have been a commuter culture more so than a car culture.
This is fair. They don't have the same amount of open roads or space to put open roads as we do.
They still have their traffic jam problems that are really bad. It's just, for the most part, a lot of people ride the buses and trains, and back then, this was immediately after a war, so not many people were going to have money for a vehicle. Oh, yeah. I think the main reason that the main character had his motorcycle...
His job absolutely required it.
Yep, and he was getting paid as he pointed out to Noriko, he's getting paid very well for a relatively dangerous job. Well,
relatively.
Not really.
It turned out not to be that dangerous, but anybody on the outside looking in would say, no, thank you. So the demand...
Yeah, anybody trolling for mines is going to seem like a very dangerous job. Just anything involving oceanic mines is one of those things.
Other thing, as far as props go, the fabrics impressed me, as weird as that sounds. Because
the costuming was good.
Not just but the blankets you see, but yes, the costumes as well, especially the military garbs. I don't know how accurate they are, but they look like they're made of the right materials for the time. And that is cool. But if you remember, I remember a scene where he's there with his daughter, Akiko, I think her name was. And her hand is lying outside of the blanket, and he lifts the blanket and puts her hand under it. I'm looking at this fabric. I'm like, wow, we don't have fabric like that anymore. Not really.
No, because this was a very the stuff they use for what are those things called? Futons is very thick and heavy.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I could tell that it looked very comfortable, but.
It is even rough. Now.
I probably would love sleeping on that.
Yeah.
The only props I did not like was the major plane at the end. Not because it wasn't good. They just didn't show us enough of it. I mean, there was like a 3-second clip of the movie where they gave us our gun porn. And it was like going over the guns and bullets as they were about to put them in. And I'm like, hey, wait. Go to them working on the plane. Let us see. No, they didn't do that.
Yeah. Well, it's much more of a character drama than a lot of other Godzilla movies, so less weird tech, less gun porn, honestly, less Godzilla.
I thought there was just the right amount of Godzilla.
I could have used a bit more, because he only really has one rampage scene, and it's real short. He destroys, 2-3 buildings, and then launches his breath.
Well,
and
the focus of his destruction wasn't against civilian targets. The movie seemed to focus more on his destructive capability against military targets in this movie.
Well, mostly it was just him sinking ships at sea.
Yes, they were treating him more like a sea monster in this story.
Yeah. So he didn't really have much time on land. And
he was really... Because this is a newborn dragon, Godzilla. He's new. He's new to his new size. He's unaccustomed to his new powers. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just pissed off and hurting and clearly sick.
Yeah, they've only really done this 3 or so times. Where it's a legitimate, just absolute fresh start. They've only really done that 3 times. The original, Shin Godzilla, and now Godzilla Minus 1. So seeing a brand new, fresh Godzilla is not something very common.
I've certainly never seen a brand new Godzilla, save our American Godzilla, which I thought was okay.
The first one was terrible. The second and third were fine.
I grew up on the American Godzilla and the Godzilla cartoon. I thought they were good for what they were, but...
the one from 98, was it?
No, I thought it was 2000, but yeah, the one with the worms.
Yeah, that one was okay. It wasn't a It absolutely wasn't a Godzilla
That's
movie,
what I was about
but
to say.
it was.
I liked it for what it was because I didn't know anything about Godzilla. But if you liked Godzilla, I understand why you hated that movie.
Oh, I didn't hate it. It just, I'll say this about it: it is a good giant monster movie.
But it should have been called Godzilla.
No, it shouldn't have been called Godzilla.
It should have been a new thing. What did they rename it as? Like as a
Toho. Since Toho has the rights to the monster from there, they renamed it Zilla because they felt it didn't deserve God.
Yeah, I agree. I think Zilla. I liked Zilla. His cartoon.
Yeah,
was
Zilla's
really good.
fine.
He's
fine as a monster.
I know there was a Godzilla movie where Godzilla just fought all the other Godzillas and just wrecked Zilla's ass.
There hasn't been one where he's fought a bunch of other Godzillas. Although there have been a couple where he has fought fought just hordes of other monsters, and the one that you would want to see if you want to see the Toho Godzilla just curb stomp Zilla.
I saw that scene.
Yeah, that's in Godzilla Final Wars, which, that is one of the weirdest Godzilla movies ever made.
I think they were just trying to make a fight movie with Godzilla. That's what I...
Well, it's not the Godzilla part that's weird. The Godzilla part's fine. That's actually pretty normal for Godzilla.
Let's not get off task.
Yeah.
But the last part I have to talk about, unless you have some other topics to talk about, is the criticisms of this movie.
I haven't actually looked at any of the criticisms of the movie.
Well, my criticisms.
And yours. Oh, okay, yeah.
My two biggest ones were the tugboats.
I actually kind of like that.
I didn't, because it kind of ruined the earlier scene where he said, "We leave the future to you." I was expecting this movie to end with them dying, and like future movies would focus on Akiko and what was the young one's name? Is that Sosaku? I think Sosaku. Akiko and Sosaku fighting Godzilla when he returns when they're older.
Oh no, I actually didn't expect any of the major named characters to die after a certain point.
Well, speaking of major named characters to die, I didn't like how they handled Noriko. There are two reasons I don't like how they did that. None of the main people die. There, we spoiled it. So when they show you one of the characters dying, she doesn't actually die. You know this. You knew this going in.
That I wasn't a huge fan of.
I think I was okay with the concept, not the execution. How I wish they'd done it, and they would have risked having the rating bumped up if they did, was showing people being recovered, and people and bodies being recovered after the blast.
Yeah, that might have been better.
I was expecting them to go into the room, and I was expecting her, Noriko, Minami, to be messed up. I was expecting her to have third-degree burns everywhere. I was expecting her to be missing a limb. And him being happy and in love with her anyways. What they
missing a limb might be possible, but from what kind of damage she took, it looked like she took third-degree burns weren't going to be a thing.
Oh my
she
goodness,
was concussive
that
force.
wind was absolutely.
It was one of the maybe not. It seemed more like concussive force because you didn't see any scorching or any heat effects on the area there.
But like skin being ripped off by the force of the wind. Instead,
that's possible.
That it looks like third-degree burns.
Because she was taking a lot of wind, but it was basically she wasn't getting the heat, but she was definitely getting the concussive force and the shrapnel of the.
They should have gone overboard in making sure she looked messed up from that, but that she was going to be okay, and that he loved her and they were going to get married anyways. That's what I thought they were going to do, and I was so disappointed by how fine she looked. Like she had her makeup on. Like, come on.
Honestly, she could have been more messed up, but that also probably would have been something that would have required a bigger budget than the bandages did.
Yes, they did great with makeup elsewhere. The guy with the black eye, when he had the black swollen eye, that looked great.
It's one of those things. I think they probably just wanted a slightly more unambiguous happy ending.
Fair.
Plus, it was a place to save money in the budget.
I gotcha. That, and if they just carted off survivors broken and dying and crying and
that
corpses
would have been better
from the disaster when Godzilla destroyed the city. That would have made it more believable.
Remarkably, we've only ever really seen them do that once. They don't usually go into showing the recovery or the effects on the survivors, at least of the civilians, very often.
And I think the reason they didn't do it in that movie is because the first third of the movie was just that from World War II.
Yeah, pretty much. So
minus
it was
the bodies.
They've already had their misery porn earlier in the
That's
movie.
true.
They didn't really need to do. I guess they felt they didn't need to do it in the middle too.
Well, I wish they'd given just 5 seconds to rescuers being the heroes of the day and dragging people out of the rubble. And like if they had actually had Minami on a stretcher somewhere in the background, and the character didn't notice it because he was all caught up in his own misery, but we as audiences could spot her on second watchings. That I would have liked that.
Well, certain twists were pretty much lampshaded very heavily.
Well, I mean, the telegram. We knew what the telegram was.
Yeah, as soon as the telegram arrived, it was one of those, and you see her reaction. It's like, oh, well, the only thing that could be is.
Yeah, there's only one thing that could be.
Yeah, and when the twist involving him and the plane. The
ejection seat. Yeah, they didn't need to hide that. We knew.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought they were going.
There was a litlittle sticker on the seat itself.
Yeah,
you can't read it if you don't know Japanese, but you know what it is.
Yeah,
because it's white and red, and it's right there, and it's like, oh yeah, so this one has an ejector seat.
That's a criticism. I didn't like how they handled the ejection seat. I think what I thought they were going to do, and which would have been better, is if he hadn't told him about the ejection seat. I thought
yeah, that's actually what I was fully expecting. I thought
he was pranking him into not killing himself. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, I think it would have been a lot better if, as he's like, you have to pull this before you go in. If he had pulled that and then ejected and it flew into the mouth and exploded, that would have been better.
Because to spoil something, when the plane mechanic who wants this guy dead, he fucking hates this guy.
Well, yeah, he's
telling him how to the mechanics of this new plane that he's flying. He shows him a lever. He says, "Pull this to prime the bomb before you fly down Godzilla's throat." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so that's actually the ejection seat button." Because
that's what I was thinking too.
But no, that was actually the primer, and then it showed the scene where he's whispering, and then later on they show us him whispering, oh, and this is the ejection lever. Like, come on! That would have been much better character development. But also, because they just had a little heart-to-heart, and I thought the guy forgave him in that moment and said, okay, I'm going to tell him. See that? And because he just knows this guy, that he's set on dying. See that? That's the primer for the bombs, wink wink. But it's actually the ejection button. And if it wasn't for that heart of heart, he would have let him kill himself and not told him that's the ejection button. Or that's the primer button. That's what I thought they were going to do. That's what they should have done.
It would have been a lot more entertaining.
And it would have shown these characters, and it made more sense for these characters as we saw them. And would have made for some really interesting developments on both of their parts.
Yeah, because it legitimately looks like he's, from the outside going in, even I would have assumed just telling him that the ejector seat was there wouldn't have gotten him to actually use the ejector seat.
I was like, he wouldn't use it if he told him. That's what I would have thought too. Like that, because this guy looking at he thinks it would be fucking hilarious to trick this suicidal man into saving his own life, for one.
And B, he does look like he's very directly suicidal.
Yeah, it looked like he's hell-bent on killing himself. If I tell him it's the ejection lever, he's not going to pull it.
Yeah.
So I thought that would have worked out so much better.
It would have been an amusing twist to have, instead of the way things turned out where he knew where the actual ejection lever was, where if he was tricked and told, the ejection lever is elsewhere, where he's not even told about the ejection lever, he's just told it's something else that he has to hit.
Yeah.
And then it goes into the happy ending. That would have been better. But I think, honestly, you could tell that not many people, that it was going to have a low body count towards the point where they give the speech about, the value of life and stuff. Yeah. That was about the point where you were like, okay, so pretty much the primary cast is all going to be fine. Which is actually normal for a Godzilla movie. You'd be surprised. The primary cast in a Godzilla movie generally doesn't suffer anything in the way of deaths. When Noriko seemingly died, that was actually pretty shocking. That doesn't usually happen in these movies.
Well,
you get a lot
the
of
shock
civilian...
was kind of ruined by the way it was done.
Yeah, you get a lot of civilian casualties, but named characters that are part of the primary cast? That's almost unheard of in Godzilla.
Oh yeah, I bet.
So
I should watch more Godzilla movies. Hell, really, if you're free to just, I don't know, no, we couldn't get away with streaming that. The studio would sue our balls off just for streaming us watching the movie. Toho.
Yeah, probably.
But I would like to watch the original Godzilla movie sometime.
Yeah, well, if you wanted to talk about which ones you should absolutely watch, the top two would be Godzilla 1954 and Shin Godzilla. Those would be the two that are the absolute best
Shin
to watch.
I was already planning on, and now I really want to watch the original just to compare the experience. And I really want to put myself in the mind frame of a Japanese person in 1953 going to see this movie. Like, because we've seen stuff like this all the time, but imagine seeing the movie I just watched in 1953.
Yeah, Godzilla 54 is... It's actually the only time where they really heavily dwell on the effect that it has on the survivors.
Because they were still dealing with the trauma of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, along with the firebombing.
Pretty much. Godzilla was basically just a manifestation of, the remaining nuclear fears and, the reaction to all the nuclear testing that the Americans were doing in the region at the time at Bikini Atoll and some other areas in the Pacific. And it was just one of those things where it's like it was the culmination of all those fears and then turned into a giant monster.
That and Godzilla, especially in this movie at least, I can't comment on other Godzilla movies, was very much the Americans' fault. And then they ditched them.
Oh no, Godzilla is always... The original Godzilla is also very much the Americans' fault.
It was like, hey, we accidentally mutated this guardian creature of your ancestors, possibly, into this unstoppable monster. Have fun with that. Bye. We're retreating because we don't want to pick a fight with the Soviets.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Like, well, our test mutated this thing into a giant monster.
But don't forget that we own you.
Yeah. Oh, well. Good luck on your own.
Yeah. We own you, but good luck. Bye.
Legitimately, it's a bit better than some of the other American portrayals in some of these movies, because...
Well...
Yeah. Being indifferent is better than being hostile.
And especially to the Japanese who just fought very hard and very viciously in World War II, the shame of being under occupation and control of America during that time period must have been outstanding. Just unbelievable. Especially to the soldiers, because one big theme in this movie, at least, was the main character's shame at his failure to defeat America.
I'm not sure if it was shame to defeat America or
shame
more
to do
that
his
it was
duty as his part in defeating.
Yeah, I think it was more just shame for failure to fulfill his duty.
But every soldier at the end felt that they could have made the difference, but didn't. Him especially, because he didn't even do his job.
Yeah, but by the end, they weren't really vilifying America in any way. They were. The people that they were vilifying were.
This movie was not vilifying America. But it was funny, that little jab, they're like, hey, America has made this monster, and now they're ditching us. Bye, Japan. Have fun.
Yeah.
Later. Don't mind us.
They were absolutely vilifying World War II era Imperial Japan's government and military.
Which is deserved.
Yeah, because, even their own soldiers hated them by the end.
It was a little over the top in places, and I was wondering, are they just going to show us that guy who told his soldiers to be cannibals and almost ate George Bush Sr.? Are they going to show us that guy?
Oh, if only that had happened.
It almost did. A Japanese general believed...
But that's a complete other thing.
Yeah, no, I was like, man, they're going really hard on insulting Imperial Japan here. Are they just going to go all out and show us all of their war crimes, too?
Oh, no. They would not. They were
not.
They were never going to go into the war crimes. At this point, they don't even acknowledge the war crimes they committed in World War II anymore. Not because they deny they exist.
But just because they're tired of people pushing their buttons with it. I get it. I respect it.
Yeah, they've apologized.
They've had their apologies thrown in their faces, and they're like, fuck
you,
China.
They've apologized in the past. They've made amends. But the nature of China, Korea, Japan, and a few other areas in there are such that they're going to just keep using any sign of weakness against the other to either shame or manipulate or attack.
I agree.
And Japan's basically just...
Japan is right to be done with that.
Yeah,
I'm American,
Japan's basically
and I'm
like...
that.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not putting up with this. We're just not going to acknowledge your horse shit anymore. Fuck off. Bye-bye.
Yep.
And that's basically their opinion. So they were never going to show the war crimes against anyone else. But they would lean heavily into the treatment of their own people.
Well, that makes sense for this story. They didn't do that for some propagandist purposes. That's because that's how the characters in this setting and the people in this historical period felt.
Pretty much. It made sense to basically crap on the Imperial Japanese military and government because they really did send them out in tanks that weren't armored well enough.
Ordered suicide. They did lose a war for stupid reasons. Like the reasons you just mentioned.
Ordered suicide attacks. You would think a country that had limited resources, both material and human, would have been smarter with the use of said resources. But the Imperial Japanese
they're definitely still limited on resources, not so much on humans.
Yeah, but at the time they did not have the people to be, doing a bunch of suicide attacks.
They weren't
Guess
Russia.
What they were doing?
They weren't Russia.
Pretty much. They were a small island nation, and they're like, you know what? We're going to just strap an extra bomb to these planes. Strap some extra bombs to these planes so that we can just fly the planes into them after they've dropped the normal bombs. It's like...
I mean, I would understand that as a last
how much is this
resort
going to cost?
Strategy.
Yeah, it's like, how much is this going to cost in people and money? It's like, you have to replace the plane, and then you have to, not only do you have to have a new pilot, you have to train the new pilot.
Yeah. They didn't have video games back then to train them for you.
Pretty much. It's one of those things where it's like, this is stupid tactics. And yet they kept doing it. I mean, they had expected the Japanese civilians to win, because they did not expect the atomic bombs. What they expected was a land invasion, and they expected the Japanese civilians themselves to fight the American invaders street by street.
To the death. And I'm like,
yard
okay,
by
earlier
yard,
you were confusing your country with
death.
Russia. Now you're confusing your country with America.
And they basically they expected to lose, but they expected to have everyone die in the process of losing.
Yep. That, and I remember them saying we were expecting a ground invasion, so we're still developing weapons for that ground war. And I'm like, I kind of want to watch a Japanese production with that as a premise. Just the war continued on, and there was a ground invasion of Japan.
That would be brutal.
It would be absolutely brutal, but also them being able to use some of these weapons they were still developing as well. Like that.
Yeah,
that plane was pretty sweet. I won't lie.
Yeah, the plane was. Yeah, it's too bad we didn't get to see the plane with its full armament because they had removed a bunch of it for the bombs.
They had that. I saw that. I'm not a plane guy, but I understand a lot of people out there love their planes, and this movie had the opportunity to really satisfy those young men. Let's face it, young men, and did not.
Well, reasonably, it makes sense because the extra 2 guns wouldn't have done crap to Godzilla anyways.
But they could have shown
by that point
on the plane. I said that. I said it earlier.
Yeah, it could have been. It would have been good. Tech porn, but that's about it.
Yeah. They should have done that. They should have just thrown that bone to the people who unexpectedly watched this movie. Like, ooh, they're taking apart a plane and putting it together. This is awesome.
Yeah, but
like,
it was
oh
already...
My goodness, is this appropriate for children?
It was already a reasonably long movie, though. So to do that, they'd have had to...
It didn't feel that long, like most movies from Hollywood, at least.
It didn't feel that long, but...
How long was it?
Yeah, let me check.
It should say here. Oh, it doesn't. Oh, nope. Oh, 2 hours and 4 minutes. Really? Was it? That was 2 hours?
Yes.
That did not feel like 2 hours and 4 minutes. I would have said an hour and a half at most. Wow.
No, that was a long movie.
Well, if they could...
I mean, it's not super long 3 hour tier, but it is a long movie.
I didn't even feel the need to go to the bathroom during that. Okay.
Nor did I. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's just... It is a long movie.
Well, if they were to remove the tugboat scene, add a little bit of gun or plane porn for the techies out there, I think it would be much better. And added just them carting away some corpses and injured people from the disaster.
I'm with you on the corpses and injured people. That would have at least better lampshaded the twist that was going to come later.
Yeah. That was, I think, no, I say that one is necessary. The other one just would be fun.
Yeah. The other one's really more of a personal taste thing.
And the only changes I think this movie needs, I think the tugboat part takes away from some of the earlier scenes and potential sequels. The part we just said, I know you disagree. Tell me why.
Yeah, I disagree on the tugboat scene. Simply because they actually lampshaded that something was going to have to happen for the plan to finish fruition. Because the two destroyers alone were not going to be able to do it.
Okay, here, let me tell you why it doesn't work. In order for the... we're gonna spoil the plan. In order for the way for Godzilla to die to work, they would have had to raise him really, really, really fast. And the time it took for the tugboats to get there... set themselves up and strap themselves to ships and then start rowing away, expressive decompression wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, that's true, but that's more of a... Most people aren't going to understand that.
Fair, but also the time it took away from the intensity of the scene, of the victory feeling that we were having. That and the plane flying into his mouth took too long. He need to cut out they need to start... that just before he reaches the surface, him coming in, just before he starts breathing his weapon. Because it took him too long to fly down to Godzilla's mouth. He should have fired by then. That timing was also a little off.
Yeah.
Minor complaint, but that could be fixed up real quick by having him do the circle around just as he reaches the surface and then fly into his mouth just as he finishes preparing his breath weapon.
Yeah. Overall, it has its problems, but I'd say it's very, very
named
good
two whole
movie.
problems, 2 1/4 problems. This movie's good.
Oh yeah,
this movie's really good.
I'm going to guess there's going to be a time skip.
Oh, I hope so.
If they do a series, I fully assume there is probably going to be a time skip. How long of a time skip, I don't know.
So, but it has to at least be long enough for the tugboat guy, the kid, to be the main protagonist of the next one. Because, like I said, they tried to hint that they foreshadowed that. We leave the future to him. They foreshadowed that he's going to be the hero of the next one.
Quite possibly. By the same token, the time skip might be a lot further than that.
Which would mean
and he's just the last
as well.
Maybe, maybe not. It depends on how far they jump. Because this is Godzilla Minus 1, which means this is basically a prequel to whatever they're actually planning to do.
Oh, that's the reason. I thought it was... Well, I thought the reason for Minus 1 is it's minus 1 decade.
Quite
from
possibly.
The original Godzilla.
Well, not fully 1 decade, but yeah, that might be it too. But what I'm thinking is that it's basically
no, it's exactly
Godzilla...
1 decade. The first time
45
Godzilla appears on film is 45, yeah.
Yeah. But my general thoughts is this is probably setting up his creation and his origin. and I think there's probably going to be a time skip to a much later time period. Could they skip to, say, the 60s or 70s with Akiko? Maybe. I'm more thinking they're probably going to skip quite possibly all the way up to damn near the present.
Well, I don't like that. Look, I like the 60s better because, like I said earlier, I was blown away by their attention to detail to making things time period appropriate. And
yeah,
I would like to see 1960s Japan. I know nothing about 1960s Japan. I know a little bit about 1940s Japan from books like Memoirs of a Geisha and others from that time period, or that took place in that time period.
Yeah. Now, it could be interesting.
But I'm not exactly any Nihongo file, you know?
Yeah. Now, it could be interesting for them to actually keep it in the, say, the 50s or something, but they don't often repeat characters, too, is another thing.
Really?
Yeah, they don't, even in the series, they don't often repeat the primary cast. At least not the entire primary cast. In the original series, known as the Showa series, which ran from the 50s through the 70s, they would rotate the cast every movie. It was completely different people every movie. Sometimes it was the same actors, which is hilarious because you can go through them and basically go, that's the same actor or actress that was in this one playing a completely different character.
I believe it. Well, let's wrap this up because it's been just about an hour. But on the topic of other Godzilla movies, does Toho ever release like a Blu-ray with all their movies on it? Is that just something they've never done?
All their movies?
Yeah.
All the Godzilla movies have been available on Blu-ray, yes.
As a single collection that's affordable and reasonable?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
Why would they do that?
I was hoping, but
the original series from the 50s through the 70s, you can get through the Criterion collection as a single set.
Oh, okay, that's a good start.
Oh yeah. The 90s, the 80s and 90s series, which is called the Heisei series. You can get pretty much, I think they're all out of print now is the sad thing, but they released them in 2 movie sets. So you get, on Blu-ray, you get 2 movies. They released like Godzilla Returns, which was the 1984 one, singularly, and then they released Biollante singularly, and then everything else in that series is a 2-movie set. And then they did that again for the Millennium series, where they released Godzilla 2000 by itself, and then every other one from the Millennium series was a 2-movie set.
That sounds kind of bullshitty. But alright.
This
movie is only in theaters for another week, I think.
Either.
Oh, you're still going?
No, I was just going to say to the bullshitty thing, they weren't terribly expensive. You were paying maybe $20-$30 max for like 2 movies on Blu-ray.
Oh, on Blu-ray, okay.
Yeah. The sad thing is, like I said, I believe all of those are out of print. You can still occasionally find them places that have back stock, but I've been trying to get Blu-rays of 1984 and versus Biollante for a while, and everybody wants like $100 for a used copy, and I'm like, no.
Well, any closing thoughts before I conclude?
On the movie, I think I pretty much covered everything about the movie. It's
I think we did.
Like I said, I would highly recommend it to anyone that's even remotely interested in giant monster movies. It is probably one of the best you're going to see.
I would also recommend it for fans of either Hispanic dramas or Asian dramas or Korean dramas. Because
it's got the Asian drama overacting thing going on.
Yeah, they got that good. If you like your Korean dramas, which I know a lot of women in America do for some reason, but they like a lot of dumb shit. But they like this movie.
Because it also has such a big focus on the interpersonal drama and the family.
And the acting
family
style
structure.
is very, very Asian drama centric.
Yep. So it would definitely be good for people that like that sort of thing as well. That's for certain. But yeah, you're probably the only one that I would say is absolutely better than this one is maybe Shin Godzilla. And that's going to depend upon taste. Because like I said, this one is more serious than that one. But that one was made half as just like, yeah, Godzilla is this big, scary, horrible, rampaging thing. It also half, look how useless and ineffective the bureaucracy of our government is at handling anything.
Oh, that's going to be funny. Like, it would be especially funny if the version of Godzilla was actually takeable, and just the Japanese government couldn't handle it because they were just tripping over their own dicks.
There's a little bit of that where it looks like they might have been. It's not worth really going into because it make this last a long time. But
yep, and it's time. It's exactly time to finish.
Yeah.
We've been at it for just exactly an hour.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, movie's good. I think you have maybe a week to watch it, less after I finish editing this and putting it up.
Yeah, I don't see this having a long run, sadly.
And that's a shame because the theater actually clapped at the end.
Oh yeah, no, it's a Godzilla movie. You're dealing with the fact that first it's a Godzilla movie and second it has subtitles. The amount of people that are going to go and sit through that aren't going to be enough to keep it for more than a week or two at max.
Yeah, but it was good. If you can get in there within the next few days after you see this, do so. If you like monster movies, if you like dramas, or if you just want to see Godzilla as he was meant to be, this was good.
Oh yeah, it was definitely worth seeing.